Welcome. So here I have the cotangent theta equals -3. And what I want to do is evaluate all 6 trigonometric functions. So, evaluate all 6 trigonometric functions. To evaluate all the 6 trigonometric functions, what we need is either to use the unit circle or we're going to want to use a triangle. And I notice that when cotangent of theta is equal to -3, I know that's not on the unit circle because I know the cotangent of theta represents the x-coordinate over the y-coordinate. And therefore, I know that, remember the unit circle only has a radius of 1. So I know that this is not going to be on the unit circle. But what I can do for this is, if I look at this, I can now rewrite this as -3 over 1. But since I'm dealing with x and y, I don't really know what's going to be negative, the negative x or the negative y. So that's why I need to look at my constraint and see what is the constraint going to tell us? Which one should we use? So where's cosine of theta is greater than 0. So that means that's where my angle is going to be when cosine of theta is greater than 0. So what I wrote up here was the 4 quadrants. And usually what we did was we used the 4 quadrants to tell us where to draw our triangle. But here I need to tell me where cosine is theta. So what I need to remember is cosine, which represents the x-coordinate, is positive only in the first and the 4th quadrant because it's negative in the 2nd quadrant and it's negative in the 3rd quadrant. Now, since only if cosine is positive and we have one of them has to be negative, that means what am I doing? That's positive. That means my y value has to be negative, right? If x is positive, to make this a negative cotangent, if x is positive, that means the 1 has to be negative. Therefore, I have to draw a triangle in quadrant 4. It can't be in quadrant 3 because in quadrant 1, both the x and the y are positive. Therefore, there's no way we could have a negative cotangent. So now I'm going to draw my triangle in the 4th quadrant. Now remember, when we draw in the 4th quadrant, so we're going to have here, we're going to make this, we're going to draw our perpendicular line to the horizontal axis, and then we're going to draw an angle with the coterminal angle being right here. So therefore, we have x is positive, which would be 3, 1, 2, 3, and then -1. So remember, you draw always a perpendicular line and then your angle to your coterminal angle. So I know this is 3 and this is -1, but I don't know what my hypotenuse is. So therefore, I'm going to have to use Pythagorean Theorem to figure that out. So I'll do 3 squared plus -1 squared equals r squared, which is going to represent our hypotenuse. So therefore, I have 9 plus 1 equals r squared equals 10. I'm just going to flip those around. Square root, that means r equals the square root of 10. So now, since I have all the sides of my triangle, I can now evaluate for my trigonometric identities. So the first one we're going to want to do is the sine of theta, which represents the opposite over the hypotenuse. All right, actually, let's write this down a little bit lower so I can rationalize the denominator for you. So I have the sine of theta equals -1, or the opposite over the hypotenuse, which is square root of 10. Remember, got it. We can't divide by square root of 10, so therefore I'm going to rationalize the denominator by multiplying by square root of 10 on top and bottom, and to get the negative square root of 10 divided by 10. Then I'll go for the cosine of theta, which is going to be the adjacent over the hypotenuse, which is going to be 3 over square root of 10. I'm going to do the same process. Therefore, I get 3 square root of 10 over 10. Then I'll do with the tangent of theta, which represents the, opposite over adjacent, which is -1/3. Now let's go into the reciprocal identities. The reciprocal of sine is cosecant of theta. So all I'm going to do is just going to reciprocate this. Well, so that would be square root of 10 over -1, which just equals negative square root of 10. Then I have the secant, which is the reciprocal of cosine, which is going to be the square root of 10 over 3. And then last but not least, I have the cotangent of theta, which is going to be the reciprocal of -1/3, which will be a -3 over 1, which is just equal to -3. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. That's how you evaluate your 6 trigonometric functions given one value and a constraint. Thanks.